All right, good morning, everybody. Today is Tuesday, February 9th, 2016, and this is Before the First Cup with Jules here on UCY.TV. Happy Tuesday, everybody. It is 34 degrees and pretty cloudy here in upstate New York. I saw for the next few days we're supposed to have snow, and then by the weekend, high of 4. First one day, high of 4, low of -4. So, pretty weird. We're getting mid-January weather already into the second week of February. But hey, you know what? The good news is spring is only about 6 weeks away. So that makes me very happy. All right. So where did we leave off yesterday? We titled the show Zika, CRISPR, and gene drive population elimination. And one of the reasons why all of these dots are connecting is because of this insanity that is evolving around Zika, this man-made hysteria that they're creating over this disease that never was a big deal before. And what's really interesting as well is that I've noticed after that story that Claire put out, Claire Burnish from Anti-Media back, I don't know if it was maybe even just a week ago. I don't know, all these days bleed together. About the potentiality of there being some sort of connection between the GM mosquitoes and the Zika outbreak and maybe mutations. And I'm going to tell you, I've dug in so much over the last year, even on these mosquitoes, but just over the last 2 or 3 weeks, it's made my head spin. I can't even put my entire brain yet around everything that I've read. It's still kind of percolating, but I'm going to tell you what. There was such an attack against Claire even questioning the correlation between there being a very similar location as to where they just recently released those mosquitoes in 2015, and bang, everybody started showing up with these quote-unquote suspected microencephaly cases. I don't know about you, but it looked pretty cut and dry to me. And they're like, oh, you see all these hit pieces now coming out. Oh, correlation does not mean causation. Well, no, it doesn't. But any intelligent individual that's going to see something that looks like A caused B is going to at least question it. And there have been now a few different stories coming out showing how it is potentially possible that you could have some sort of mutation and piggybacking. Now, I got to say, too, I saw not only the hit piece originally that came out of Discover magazine by, what was her name? Carrie Wilcox. She added an addendum to that story, and it looked like Carrie Wilcox, that you cut and paste from the PR department at Oxitec or maybe Oxford University, but you guys seem to have gotten together, 20 or 30 genetics professionals to nip this in the bud. And as you said, what an absolutely, what was the word that she used? I'm trying to remember. She said it was not unreasonable. No. I don't even have chat open. Hold on. It's too early. She said it was a very irresponsible thing to do for somebody to write an article questioning the safety of genetically modified mosquitoes because it could cost lives. Now, wait a minute. So writing an article while these genetically modified mosquitoes are being released, now that we're in the middle of all this, and you've released it, Oxitec, in 8 different countries now, while we're in the middle of all this, all of a sudden, it becomes dangerous. It becomes, and I don't remember the word again, it becomes a bad thing to question. But I mean, I dug in, and we had so many scientists coming out questioning the safety, the ethics of any of this technology just a few years ago. And back in 2007, I saw a couple different stories where scientists were coming out saying that there's all kinds of unknowns. And that's the one thing that, like, right before all of the GMO came to the public forefront, and I'm not just talking mosquitoes, I'm talking about everything. I'm talking about GMO foods, GMO insects, GMO animals, RNAi medicine, growing edible vaccines and medications within genetically modified plants. We'll talk about that one. I don't know today, but maybe this week. Now this is the world of GMO, and they're spinning it and selling it because this is the way we're going to feed the world. And, we got to do it this way because it's overpopulation, people. The planet can't grow normal food anymore. It's all got to be genetically modified to make up for, the messed up climate that you caused, people. Not natural. You caused it. Remember? COP21 and all the rich guys told you that. But once they started this rollout to the public, I have seen that any scientific dissent has pretty much fallen into the toilet. And then we discover those NYU students doing a research paper. It was a class project. And they discovered, and the professor confirmed it, and it turned into a big deal, that the large majority of the FDA research published papers that are out in the public eye right now, and papers that are being used for additional research and references to then publish new papers, a large majority of those papers that were approved and allowed to be published have been proven to be either fraudulent or fully out incorrect, and were never retracted or redacted by the FDA. So I ran across something. So we're going to talk a little more about Zika today, because this yarn is way bigger than genetically modified mosquitoes. And I just wanted to point out how amazing these attacks are about, the rumor about genetically modified mosquitoes is incorrect and false. I mean, this morning just trying to find this new emergency bill they passed last night. The whole top section of search engine hits, which, of course, I want to talk about some of the technology companies as well, because they're all involved in this. Google now with their truth algorithm. Remember, if you don't have truth on your website, you're not going to be at the top of the search engine hits. Well, this morning I was trying to find something, and all I got was about that conspiracy theory about the genetically modified mosquitoes is incorrect. I mean, and it just was 10 or 15 stories now. In the old days, you'd have to pay to get that kind of ranking. Now you just gotta lie. And it just disgusts me because, you know what, I'm not saying I don't have a DIY genetics kit yet here on my desk. So how the hell do I know? But I'm going to tell you, I've studied enough about genetic modification over the last 5 years and this CRISPR technology, which allows them to do it, and gene drives, and Oxitec, and insects as disease vectors as part of the biowarfare program, which they had done many years of research over in Plum Island. I mean, that's a well-known disease vector is insects. And Bill Gates and all of his investments in these vaccination companies. And I mentioned it yesterday. We talked about it a while ago. He also invested in a gene editing company. I don't remember the name of it, but you can search it. Bill Gates invests gene editing. You'll find it. This is just one big ugly ball of earwax with nasty around the toilet hair in it. That's what it is. This is all a big, fat, orchestrated lie. And they want you to swallow it. I'm not swallowing it. Now, let's dig in here. 'Cause there's a couple things going on, but I want to find the story. Damn it. I thought I hit it first. I don't know. I was trying to get everything together here. Right at the beginning. Here we go. I mentioned that New York NYU class that doing their research discovered that a large amount of the FDA research is fraudulent. That made big headlines. But see, 2016 is the year that the global technocracy, corporatocracy, is clamping down on free speech. Okay, TPP, that TPP is they're ratifying this, and everybody started inking it, and not everybody inked it. So I don't know. It's all secret. Shh. We're not supposed to know what our future holds because it's all secret. But some of the countries didn't ink it. They were kind of waiting to see what the United States did. But anyone who inks that TPP needs to change their laws. Yeah, their laws to be in step with the TPP laws. So, privacy, labeling laws, drug laws, patents, trademarks, free speech. I don't even know what else. I mean, it goes into like all different parts. The internet, link sharing potentially, who knows? But the TPP, that's like step one. Because remember, they don't want you to know what's in your food. They don't want you to know what's in your drugs either. And they want to be able, and I'll tell you, the reason why they don't want you to know what's in your food is because they're starting to grow biopharmaceuticals in plants. So, Johnny, here, eat your tomato to protect you against measles. You watch. There's a big story about it that we'll try to get to. Anyway, all right, I'm rambling. Story came out the other day, February 3rd, 2016. Professor who exposed the Flint crisis. This is the Flint lead. Forgot to mention the lead water in Flint, Michigan. And I guess there's a whole bunch of other cities in Michigan. And Erin Brockovich, the woman who helped expose that big hexavalent chromium problem in California many years ago. Erin Brockovich, I think that's what they even called the movie, but she's a real person, and she's an environmental activist. And Erin Brockovich was just on, I don't know, one of the late night programs. I didn't actually get to watch the interview, but I did see the clip, and she was saying that this isn't just an isolated problem, and this is what we've been thinking for a long time. Infrastructure across this entire nation is crumbling. And all that money that you thought you were paying in taxes or whatever to maintain this stuff, hey, who knows where it's been going? $1 billion here and $1 billion there. I mean, Obama just loves to ink $1 billion emergency bills for this, that, and the other thing. Or $1 billion brain research project. Yeah, we got all that cash. Just keep printing it. Keep printing it and writing checks for $1 billion. One other thing, too, speaking about infrastructure collapsing and falling apart, and them just standing there like dumbfounded, like, what do we do? Because no one can think for themselves anymore. Last night I was just kind of thinking about this. In California, we have this Porter Ranch disaster unfolding, and it's just in slow-mo. It's horrifying. Where they have methane spewing out of the ground. They discovered that there was radon in there as well, so you have radioactivity. But part of the new part of the story came out yesterday. RFK Jr. had actually given a talk about it, and I'm assuming he was somewhere around Porter Ranch because it looked like he was at an update meeting for what was going on there. But they've discovered that with this methane spewing out of there, when it gets hit by solar rays So I don't know if it's the UV or if maybe there's ozone involved. I'm not really sure. Ozone, of course, is up higher, so probably not. There's probably some sort of UV. But the methane, when it's hit by solar rays, because that's what he said, it creates formaldehyde. And formaldehyde causes melting of the skin and all kinds of horrifying things. That's spewing out as well. So think about this. You got this massive, they're saying like BP oil spill methane leak on land happening outside of Los Angeles, one of the largest metropolises in the United States. And everyone's walking around dumbfounded. What do we do? I don't know. They didn't even evacuate the residents properly. And people are still trying to figure out what to do. They're living in hotels. It's really horrible. I was watching some videos the other day, little kids crying, and nobody knows what to do. But then an emergency declaration comes out of New York a couple days ago from good old Cuomo, our governor, about Indian Point. Now, Libby's talked about Indian Point many, many times. Libby Haleve, nuclear hot seat. Nuclear. Indian Point has had issues for a long time. I remember there was some cracking and stuff going on there. I assumed it was going to be decommissioned, which is what the original plan was. But then, bang, in the news this weekend, 65,000% increase in radioactive tritium around Indian Point. Now, if anyone knows where Indian Point is, it's not too far outside of New York City. Good 20 million plus people in New York. Hey, what could go wrong? So, all I want to say about that is not my gist for today, but I realized last night how interesting, right at the same time, talking about collapsing infrastructure, we have this massive BP on land methane leak outside of Los Angeles. And now I think I heard Claire saying last night on Anti-Media that it's a 3-reactor complex. One's loaded with waste and 2 are providing up to 30% of the power for New York City at this Indian Point. And it's just outside of New York. So, I don't know. How many people live in LA? Let's look that up, because I was guessing last night, maybe 10 million. How many people live in LA? I would say it's at least 10. Oh, I guess. Well, where'd these numbers come from? So it's not 20 million in New York. It says it's 8.4 million people in New York City as of 2013. So it was 4 years ago. Oh, well, I guess it depends on where they draw the line, right? Because there's another one. One here says there's 3.8 million people in LA, and then another one underneath says, 10.2 million. So who the hell knows? I don't know. It's not important. But let's just know that even if we go by the low numbers, 8.4 million and 3.8 million, that's 11, 12 million people at least, maybe 20 on the high end, that are in some real danger if stuff goes bad. Now, that methane leak, they were like, it's collapsing. The whole mine is collapsing. And 65,000% increase in radiation, I don't care what kind of radiation it is. That's not a good sign at all. We need to be cognizant of the fact that this stuff is going on around us. And the people in charge aren't doing anything. How come this stuff isn't fixed? How come this stuff was allowed to get to this point in the first place? Who is keeping you safe? Remember, I told you they're not keeping you safe. It's all under the mantra they're keeping you safe. Everything they do. This new Zika emergency is to keep you safe, but it's not to keep you safe. It's to make you afraid and to fall into line and to do what they want you to do, which at this point is to give in to all their new mad science gone mad. Because that's what's rolling out right now. Full out in frontal. All right, let's get back to this because I digress many times. Professor who exposed the Flint crisis says that greed. Oh, greed. No, there's never been any greed. Greed has killed public science. Well, I think we've been finding a lot of that lately now, haven't we? Academic pressure and financial motives has prohibited scientists from asking important questions. Oh, like any mad science question. And here's the thing. We've done a lot of shows connecting the dots between the corporations and the university, between DARPA and the university, between government funding and the university, between billionaire funding and the university, between billionaire philanthropic causes and the university. Well, what do you think's going to happen? They and their research is going to be beholden to whoever footed the bill. That's why when Big Pharma pays for medical schools, those new medical students are not getting taught about natural medicine or about actually how the body works or anything because the cure is always give 'em more pills. It's disgusting. It's not for you or me. It's in special interests' interest. Back to the story. Academic research and scientists in this country are no longer deserving of the public trust, declared Mark Edwards, the Virginia Tech civil engineering professor who helped expose the Flint water crisis. In an interview published in the Chronicle of Higher Education on Tuesday, Edwards explained how the pressures put on academics to secure funding are forcing scientists to abandon work done in the public interest, and that similar financial motives are causing government science agencies to ignore inconvenient truths like high levels of lead in public drinking water. Ding, ding, ding. I mean, I remember back a few years ago them finding that there were radioactive water pipes when they were trying to swap out water pipes down in Texas, take it to a dump. And I guess the dump must use a radiation detector. And they're like, whoa, those pipes are radioactive. There have been radioactive water flowing for a long time. I don't remember what town that was, but there's a couple. I don't know if it's probably naturally occurring in the water. But, you know, now they got to have all these special filters and stuff that cost billions of dollars, and then we don't know how we're going to dispose of them. So it's easier not to say anything. Oh, we didn't know there was radioactivity. We didn't know there was lead. We didn't know it was loaded with glyphosate. You know, they could tell us whatever they want to tell us. It's just really, really disturbing. And, of course, this entire environment, even though Obama said he was going to be the most transparent president in history and protect whistleblowers, he has prosecuted more whistleblowers than any president ever. And they're out for blood for the ones that are still out there. They want them to come back so they can make examples of them. Well, better be careful, because that's what it's coming to. But you know what? We got to stand up now, guys. We got to expose this stuff. You know, there's so much going on right now that I would find it hard to believe that even the most asleep, maybe the younger generation that are completely sucked into the machine, but people our age, 30 on up, you know, people who've actually been out in the real world, gotten out of mom's basement, you know, had a job, paid bills, and really understand kind of how things work, at least on a basic level, can see that there is something very wrong now. It's their responsibility to stand up. You know, people are afraid. People are afraid, especially in my old industry, because they're bagging and tagging everything. They know who you are. Even if you hide it, they know who you are. unless you're using some really highly sophisticated proxies and hidemyass.com and all that other stuff, they got your address. They know who you are. So there isn't much that you can do or log into or say that isn't bagged and tagged and put in your dossier. But people like me, who'll probably never be able to go back to work in my industry because of the last few years of all the stuff that I've spoken about. But you know what? I can't. It's the tech industry is the one that's pretty much leading the charge with the biotech industry and big government. They're all responsible. They are all complicit in this crime against humanity that's happening at a global level right now. But there are people out there, friends of mine, who've been keeping a very wide berth from me, and not because I'm a lunatic, because anyone who's been friends with me for a long time has known that Jules has talked about this shit for 20 years, okay? It was always fun to have a beer with me because I would blow your mind, and a beer would loosen them up enough so they could just, put aside their disbelief and just absorb. Okay, so that isn't why they give me a wide berth. They give me a wide berth now because if you're in tech and you touch something like me, I'm poison. I'm poison because I'm not going along with it. The same thing is happening across all the industries. I saw back when Fukushima happened, we talked about it. There were a lot of oceanographers that were let go by the Canadian government when they started raising the alarm bells about seeing elevated radiation on the coast. Well, I just saw yesterday, too, in Australia. Check this out. Wait. I don't know. It's so hard to see where the titles are. Here. In Australia. You want to talk about bullshit science? Here. I'll give it to you right now. Australia is like so far up the New World Order's butt right now. They are just marching right in line. Australia cuts 110 climate scientist jobs because, and this is what it says, the science is settled. There is no need for more basic research, says the government. Yeah, the science is settled. Oh, sorry, climate scientists. You don't need a job. They cut 110 out of 140 positions at the Atmosphere and Ocean Division at the Commonwealth Scientific and Industrial Research Organization. And the Atmosphere and Research Division, what? Because now they're also saying that they're detecting radiation in the southern Pacific Ocean? And this is really disturbing. So now let's get rid of all the scientists. Because, you know what? The bureaucrats will tell you what's going on. Don't worry about it. All right, back to this first story. Is this going to turn into another one of those days where I do one story? All right, so I'm trying to establish here how there's no credibility at all in anything that these talking heads are saying anymore. Because it is in full gear, the 2016 agenda, to lie and make anybody that's dumb enough to believe. Don't believe it. Question everything. You know what? That's the one thing my mom taught me. If there was anything else, she taught me. She would say, don't believe it because somebody else told you. Question everything. Do your own research. All right. In an interview published in the Chronicle of Higher Education on Tuesday, Edwards, and this is this Virginia Tech civil engineering professor that exposed the Flint water crisis, Edwards explained, I think I read this, but it's okay, how the pressures put on academics to secure funding are forcing scientists to abandon work done in the public interest, and that similar financial motives are causing government science agencies to ignore inconvenient truths like the high levels of lead in public drinking water. He said he's very concerned about the culture of academia in this country and the perverse incentives that are given to young faculty. Oh, we know what those are called. Those are called dangling carrots. That damn dangling carrot, man, it causes so many people to go to the dark side. Don't fall for it. They poison the dangling carrot, people. It's not about the dangling carrot anymore. That's what they trained us. Blame it all on Bernays. She said dangling carrot. Run after it so we could make you rich. Except there isn't going to be any rich. There isn't going to be any middle class or even upper middle class. Or even lower upper class. Because you know what? You guys are all going to get chomped. All expendable. Edwards described the culture as a hedonistic treadmill with extraordinary pressures to pursue funding, publication, and academic clout. Meanwhile, he said, the idea of science as a public good is being lost. Well, I would second that opinion. Edwards, whose research also uncovered high levels of lead in the Washington, D.C. water supply in 2003, was tapped by Flint residents to help test their water after officials with both the EPA and the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality ignored their concerns. Have you seen that water? It's like brown. And the Michigan government, the Michigan environmental agencies are like, nah, it's safe. It's safe. Don't worry about it. If it's got chunks in it and it's brown, that's just, the way Great Lakes water looks. It doesn't. It's way cleaner now. It doesn't start on fire anymore. In the cases of Flint and Washington, Edwards illustrate how the failure of government scientists to acknowledge a problem coupled with academia's refusal to question their judgment can drive serious public health crises. Edwards said that practicing heroism within the scientific community can be a lonely pursuit. Yeah, it sure can. And that here, this is exactly what I said. He has, quote unquote, lost friends simply by asking questions. You become toxic. That's the problem. Nobody's asking questions. Questions aren't illegal. Opening your mouth isn't illegal. Standing up and saying back up the truck is not illegal. As a matter of fact, it's our right. Not that we have any more rights, but I think if enough people stood up and said, hey, dudes, we don't want any part of this. We want a reassessment of all of it. I don't know. Power numbers with pitchforks? Anyway, to finish the story, quote, this is this professor, I grew up worshiping at the altar of science, and in my wildest dreams, well, so did I, at the altar of technology, and in my wildest dreams, I never thought scientists would behave this way, he said of the Center for Disease Control's widespread misreporting of lead levels in Washington. That good old CDC. Wow, we keep digging up all kinds of things that show we should not trust them ever. The CDC is full of shit. We're going to give you another full of shit CDC story here in a second. Quote, professor again, when I realized what they had done as a scientist, I was outraged and appalled, he said. The only way that I can construct a worldview that accommodates this is to say these people are unscientific. Science should be about pursuing the truth and helping people. Yes, ding, ding, ding. Those are my two goals in life, is the truth, because I hate lying sacks of shit, and helping people, because by nature, I'm a humanitarian. That's what I do. The truth and helping. So you know what? I am totally behind this dude. And that is exactly how I feel. It's disgusting. It makes me want to cry, literally. You know, if we can't even trust those of, quote unquote, the intellectual class, the ones who studied and specialized in the science that's supposed to be propelling humanity forward, if they're all corrupted and bought off and selling out humanity, which is exactly what they're doing, how do we get it back? And pointing to us every time we call bullshit on any of their twisted studies that they've done that proves, oh yeah, vaccines are safe. And then we get all these documents coming out from the CDC whistleblower. Oh no, the connection to autism we chucked into a garbage can and we hid it. I mean, how many more stories are there like that? I bet you for the 10 or 20 that get uncovered, there's probably thousands more that never were discovered. Anyway, if you are doing this for any other reason, and that is pursuing truth and helping people, then you really ought to question your motives. Bravo. All right, now I want to continue on the bullshit we are being fed. So back to Zika. Zika, this global outbreak now, World Health Organization emergency, all the biotech companies now in high gear to get a vaccine ready. That Bharat Indian company might have one candidate ready to go 2 weeks from now. But Zika wasn't a serious virus that anybody was developing anything for before, but for some reason this place in India who received funding at one point from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation happened to be working on Zika over a year ago. But don't worry about that. We also discovered when I looked into the investors, the investment arm for the World Bank had been invested. They were actually selling their investments, and I believe the Carlyle Group was investing in that Bharat Pharmaceuticals now. So, hey, I don't know. You come to your own conclusions on that one. But as of February 4th, out of those 4,180 microencephaly cases in Brazil, only 404 of those cases were actually confirmed to be microencephaly, and 17 of them found to have Zika. 17. But hey, global health crisis, emergency. So Obama jumps on board because he needed a good excuse to spend more federal dollars for his mad science precision medicine. And this is the money that professor was talking about. This money goes to universities, which then do research, which then spin their new discoveries out to a new actually biopharma company, which then has an IPO right before an outbreak and bang, discovers a vaccine or a medication and makes bazillions of dollars. Well, so Obama the other day says, we got to step it up, because we have these Zika mosquitoes, and I kid you not, people, remember how ISIS and the self-radicalized teens over the internet were hiding under every bed and in every closet? We talked about that many, many times. Well, Zika mosquitoes' habits may foil the U.S.'s elimination efforts, and I'll tell you why. Because the Aedes aegypti mosquito that carries Zika apparently, and I kid you not, hides under beds and in closets. Yes, yes, yes. I mean, come on. Here, this is what it says. Health experts are bracing for the Zika virus to spread to the United States in April or May. borne by a mosquito that craves human blood, feeds during the day, and lives under beds and inside closets. So be afraid. Be very afraid. Those little vampires sucking, flying needles of death are going to be hiding under your bed and in your closet, waiting to jump out and scare you. I mean, come on. Now, Dale lives down in South America. Dale's a chatter. Dale said that, yes, they do live in other places, but there's some good comments in the chat that day we were talking about this. Put out a bowl of water. I mean, the one place, if I ever see a mosquito in my house, which is very, very, very rare, put out a bowl of water, or you find them in your bathroom. Put some water in your bathroom. They'll end up in the shower, and then you just hose them down the drain. All right, so now to this additional bullshit. They just keep layering it on thicker and thicker. Obama pledges $1.8 billion. $1.8 billion we don't have to fight Zika. And the CDC, another bullshit organization, has now moved Zika to the very highest alert level. What? Are you kidding me? Yeah, this happened last night. The Obama administration is asking Congress for $1.8 billion to respond to the Zika virus abroad and prepare for it at home, officials said on Monday. So we apparently have another almost $2 billion this time to go fight mosquito wars. Where the hell are the billions of dollars that companies like Oxitec make, or any of these vaccine manufacturers? Let them pay for it. I don't want to pay for it. I don't want to be the one responsible for cleaning up your genetically modified mosquito mess now. Why is that my problem? Why are we sucking another $1.8 billion out of our infrastructure that could be going to fix, I don't know, the Flint water problem? I saw you got inmates giving up 1/3 of their paycheck in Michigan to help fix the water problem. $1.8 billion could be to put in water pipes, could be, I don't know, to plug that methane leak. Or how about deal with Indian Point in New York? $1.8 billion to respond to the Zika virus abroad. What, the 17 cases of Zika confirmed with microencephaly? What's 17 divided into 1.8 billion? That's a lot of cash. As well as prepare for it at home, officials said on Monday. We must work aggressively to investigate these outbreaks and mitigate to the best extent possible the spread of the virus. Well, yeah, of course, now that it spreads, they came out and said it spreads through sexual contact, through saliva, through urine. Next thing you're going to get Zika just looking at somebody. This is that red button again. They got to remind you to be afraid and be ready. Be ready. Be ready for mandatory vaccines. And it's all about global warming. If you people weren't eating meat, cows that produce lots of methane, the greenhouse gas, we wouldn't have global warming. If we didn't have global warming, we wouldn't have these mosquitoes. And these mosquitoes, apparently, that are getting viruses that were never dangerous before, but now must somehow be mutating. I mean, it's a fairy tale they're painting, and they just keep making it up as they go along. We must work aggressively to investigate these outbreaks and mitigate to the best extent possible the spread of the virus, the administration said in a statement. It said it has not yet seen a case of Zika transmitted directly within the continental United States, But with the approach of spring and summer mosquito seasons, it wants to be prepared to fight the disease. Now remember, there's a couple different things going on too with these mosquitoes. Oxitec uses the CRISPR technology, and they cut in the genes that require tetracycline. We talked about that. There's also the other mosquitoes that they infect with that Wolbachia bacteria that infects the sex organs, and we can look at that in a minute because there are Wolbachia mosquitoes that have been released in a few places. We'd have to look that up. I don't remember if it was Wolbachia mosquitoes or tetracycline mosquitoes that were released in Mexico. And yeah, there was a release in Mexico a while back. I hadn't seen that until just recently. And they're pushing to release the Oxitec tetracycline mosquitoes for dengue down in Florida. And of course, now Oxitec is splicing and dicing mosquitoes to be able to release them specifically for Zika. But now Australia as well is getting into the game. But we'll look at that in a minute. So anyway, with spring and summer mosquito season coming, look out! We want to be prepared to fight the disease because remember, they hide under every bed and in every closet. Hours later, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, right on cue, announced that its emergency operations center in Atlanta was on the highest level of alert. More than 300 CDC staff are now working in the command center to monitor and coordinate the Zika response. Come on. This is absolutely ludicrous. In the command center, doing command center coordination, 300 CDC staff. Probably getting paid all kinds of pretty overtime. Is there a holiday coming too where they can get double time? Come on. Anthony Fauci. I mean, listen to this fairy tale. Anthony Fauci, director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, said that he did not expect a major outbreak in the United States, noting that similar viruses such as dengue fever have been controlled in certain regions of the country, such as in Texas and Florida. But, he said, we never assume the least. We always assume the worst. Really? So this whole microencephaly thing has been going on since, July, August, September last year when they started to see all these increases in cases. And nobody did anything then. Why all of a sudden now? Now that we have 17 confirmed cases, is this just such a global pandemic emergency? Requiring $1.8 billion to spray pesticides under my bed and in my closet. Oh, well, here we go. Here's an explanation. The CDC money would be used to reduce transmission in the most vulnerable parts of the United States, including Puerto Rico, Hawaii, and southern states such as Florida and Texas. Officials are also focusing on pregnant women. Oh, they really want to be able to get pregnant women and their babies, the groups at highest risk. The mosquito-borne virus is suspected of being linked. Suspected, key phrase, suspected of being. There is no proof. None. Suspected. To a rare congenital condition known as microencephaly, blah, blah, blah. Brazil, the epicenter of the outbreak, right where they let go the GMO mosquitoes. And right where they spray tons and tons and tons of pesticides, including glyphosate. Right where they started the Tdap vaccine for pregnant women the year before. And one of the side effects can be microencephaly. Yeah, I mean, this is just unbelievable. So I just wanted to make sure that all of our new Brazilian listeners out there, because we've had a few, I've gotten a few comments and some emails, and I welcome you because they're feeding you a crock. They're feeding all of us a crock. This is just the next step in line. This is the next Ebola, guys. They said that the National Institute of Health was already diverting researchers' attention away from projects aimed at similar viruses to draw up ideas on the Zika virus. And he said that if Congress did not appropriate the money, then the National Institute of Health would be forced to divert money from other projects. The bulk of the money the administration is requesting, $828 million, would go to the CDC for what? To pay overtime for those 300 people sitting doing nothing in a command and control center? The request also includes $250 million for a 1-year increase in Medicaid funding for Puerto Rico. What? Is Puerto Rico was just crying the blues like a month ago, saying they're about going broke? We need money, prop up our economy. The administration would then pump $200 million into an accelerated vaccine and testing techniques for Zika through the National Institute of Health and the Food and Drug Administration. Right. They both have your safety in mind. And then $210 million would go to a brand new fund to respond to new outbreaks if they appear in the United States. I don't even know what to say to this. $1.8 billion. The administration said the money it is requested would go to expanding mosquito control programs, accelerating vaccine research and diagnostic development, ding, 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 enabling the testing and procurement of vaccines and diagnostics, 21st Century Care Act, fast track it all. Don't worry about safety, it's all about money. As well as educating healthcare providers, pregnant women and their partners, improving epidemiology and expanding laboratory and diagnostic testing facilities, improving health services and supports for low-income pregnant women, and enhancing the ability of Zika-affected countries to better combat mosquitoes and control transmission. The World Health Organization has declared Zika a global health emergency. Dun, dun, dun. And you know what? Good old Bill Gates is going to be able to sell some of those new condoms he's releasing that one of his sprinkle funding groups created. Because, hey, there's a new STD in town, and it's called Zika. Zika, Zika, Zika. All right, so let's finish this up. Gonna have to find this one. It's a Scientific American. No, hold on. Oh, damn. Here we go. Queensland, Australia. Queensland residents, thank you to EDF for this one, breed their own mosquitoes to combat Zika. So, Australia was one of those very first countries I talked about where they had released genetically modified mosquitoes to battle an equine virus that was getting the horses. They had all kinds of neurological disorders after getting bitten by the mosquitoes. And, it was very difficult for me to dig up any old articles about that, but I distinctly remember I have family in Australia. Genetically modified insects as disease vectors have been a red button of mine for a long time. I remember that story. And it took me an afternoon last time I spoke about that, and I found one little reference article that was like a link to a link that talked about that. The official story out of abc.au is no longer around. Surprise. But hey, don't worry about it because they're releasing some new mosquitoes in Australia utilizing the Wolbachia bacteria, which they say, of course, prevents insects from transmitting viruses such as dengue and Zika. But when none of these stories that talk about this other genetically this other mosquito that they're using where they infect it with this bacteria. And trust me, it's out there. Bacteria is out in a lot of insects, just not the Aedes aegypti mosquito. But listen, remember, anything they do on insects, the next ones are us. They're going to find a way to do research that then can be twisted and turned and used on humans in some way, shape, or form later. These bacteria, these Wolbachia, can infect many different types of organs and are most notable for the infections of the testes and the ovaries of their hosts. Wolbachia species are ubiquitous in mature eggs, but not mature sperm, and only infected females therefore can pass the infection on to their offspring. Wolbachia maximizes their spread by significantly altering the reproductive capabilities of its hosts with 4 different phenotypes, and this is genetically speaking. A1, male killing. Yes, it kills the males. Infected males die during larval development, which increase the rate of born infected females. Number 2, feminization. Oh, infected males develop as females or infertile pseudo-females. Okay. Number 3, parthenogenesis. Reproduction of infected females without a male. Oh, yeah, we don't need men anymore. Check that out. That's what they're working on. We've talked about this. It's all going to be in a petri dish in the lab. You're going to need a license for children and some money. Some scientists have suggested the parthenogenesis may always be attributed to the effects of Wolbachia because there have been different cases of virgin births. And the very last but not least, cytoplasmic incompatibility, and that is the inability of Wolbachia-infected males to successfully reproduce with uninfected females or females infected with another Wolbachia strain. It can keep the lower class separated from the higher class. I see how this is going to work. All right, guys, well, make sure you stick around because it is Tuesday. Mr. Kevin Blanche is live up next. And we have Ron Game On live at 7 p.m. Eastern. Our interesting times with Tim Kelly at 8. 9, Primer Time with Michael and Nick. 10, Geoengineering Watch from this week with Dame Wigington at 11. It's live with Antimedia Radio and SM Gibson. All right, guys, have an awesome Tuesday. I will catch up with you tomorrow. Take care.